Welcome back. The time now 9:13. Well, after some controversy, the city of Columbia has new rules in place for Uber drivers. Uber is a ride-sharing app-based service that allows anyone to use their own car to give others a ride for a fee. And last night, the city council approved changes requiring drivers to get a city background check as well as an inspection by a police officer. They'll also need a business license and will have to pay a permit fee. Joining me today to talk about these changes is 3rd Ward Councilman Carl Scala. Councilman Scala, thanks so much for coming on today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We appreciate you coming in after a late night, I'm sure. Well, kind of talk to us a little bit about the changes. How do you feel this went in putting these in place?
Well, obviously there was a bit of antagonism early on between Uber and the city in terms of how they implemented their ride-sharing service. Initially, they were giving rides free just to kind of feel out the market, if you will, and I assume they appreciated the market. There is a good market in Columbia for that kind of thing. The problem arose when they decided to start charging for rides before they actually got the permission of the city council or the city in general, and essentially made some of their records sufficiently confidential that we really were forced into a situation in which we had to issue tickets to make sure that they didn't proceed until we had time enough to determine what the best outcome would be for the balancing the playing field for legacy taxis and ride-sharing companies.
And now they kind of are on a regular, basically, they're kind of just almost lumped into the same category as taxi drivers.
The idea. I mean, obviously, there are two different kinds of ways to approach this, but to the extent that we can, we tried to have the staff even the playing field, if you will. And you mentioned, alluded to those 4 issues with respect to Uber in particular. That is the criminal check, the background checks, the vehicle inspections, the chauffeur's license, and so on. Those are the kinds of things that legacy cabs also deal with. And then there was another bill that it was an attempt to make sure that legacy taxi cabs were updated as well to make sure that this playing field was even. We welcome Uber into this market along with the legacy cabs. The important thing is we all have to play by the rules. We are a nation of laws. That's what we expect. And respect is a two-way street. And if Uber respects our laws, we, in fact, will respect their business model.
Last night, I know there was kind of some discussion, and an Uber representative felt that these rules were a little too much because they already have background checks in place. How do you feel on that statement?
Well, I don't think the rules are onerous at all. I suspect that it may, be an inconvenience to some degree, but, our primary responsibility in local public office and in local government is for public safety. And there was some testimony to suggest that allowing Uber their total capacity without some of these restrictions would, in fact, enhance public safety. I don't buy that argument. That's not something that most of the city council accepted. And as a matter of fact, with all the city council members there, it was a unanimous decision to adopt both of these bills.
Now, drivers will be ticketed if they don't follow through. Do you think there will be a specific kind of crackdown on Uber, making sure they are?
I don't want to anticipate anything. It depends. It's the extent to which Uber decides to cooperate with this. If they resist, in fact, if they take a very adversarial relationship, I think that would be really unfortunate. Not only for Uber, but also for the city. The relationship that we have with innovative new kinds of ideas in this relatively progressive community. I'm confident that they will think that this is not an onerous burden and go along with these rules and to obey the law just like everyone else does. Even city council members there are no exceptions here.
Yes. I want to kind of switch gears now to talk about another big issue always in Columbia, growth. We have been growing for years. Sure. It's a great thing for our city, but it has been kind of hard to keep up, right?
Well, it has been, and that's the history of this really is, early on in our history, we wanted to encourage growth. We even provided subsidies to the development community and the business community to make sure that we were energizing the capacity to get revenue, and because after all, that's how we pay the bills, with sales taxes and property taxes and so on. The problem becomes when you get to be a certain size, and I think we have reached that limit. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 people. We're now about 120,000, something like that. Then you realize that things start to wear out, the roads and the sewers and the electric infrastructure and all the rest of it. And then there is soft infrastructure, police and fire that have to deal with the consequences of all of this growth. When you factor all of that in, you realize that you may have made some mistakes in the past in that you had not factored in the costs of growth along with the benefits of growth. And there are both. And that's the realization that we're finding right now. We have never really planned adequately for the maintenance of some of the systems that we had to use in order to accommodate this growth.
Yeah, and any idea of how to fix that?
Sure. One of the ideas actually failed this last November, and that was kind of a cost-sharing idea with an increase in development fees. It was based on a model that we got from a consultant, so it was not a new idea, but I think it was probably a little bit too complicated, too complex for the voters to deal with. And I suspect that within 6 months or a year, we will bring back a simplified version of this with an increase in development fees probably across the board, regardless of that use category, and get rid of that complicating factor. And we'll see how that works. Almost unanimously, the business sector and the development sector realizes that an increase in fees is something, a modest increase in fees is something that's necessary for us to maintain the health of our community.
Big, complicated topic. We'll have much more on that, I'm sure,
no
in
doubt.
the coming months. Thanks so much for coming on.
You bet.
We appreciate that
My
so
pleasure.
much. Well, now here's Jessica with a look at